That's a little strong, but we'll get going here.
Let's start with Tuesday Night Titans. I got a lot to say about this show.
Okay. First of all, the opening graphics. I realize this show is 30 years old, but these graphics, for their era, were terrible.
Yes.
Like, this show came out, I don't know, 7, 8 years after the original Star Wars. And these graphics were like Atari level. It looked so bad.
I would suspect that the budget for Star Wars was probably slightly higher than that of Tuesday Night Titans.
I'm sure it was. But these were so bad, Brian.
They were very bad. I told the story once about how in 1993, I had gone to, I don't even know where it was, but I had bought a machine that was to do the graphics for shows like this because we had the YWF television show. And I cannot even tell you, I saved and I scrimped and I worked my ass off at Canyons or wherever I worked during that era to save enough money up to buy this titler, and it was hundreds of dollars. And I got maybe the exact same level of graphics as here on this Tuesday Night Titans show. So technology has advanced greatly, I can tell you that.
Yes. So, Vince McMahon at his desk promises a most unusual show. And considering the normal standards for TNT, I was actually literally frightened at that point.
The moral of the subject of this show was they actually had a term for them. What was the term they used?
Unsung heroes.
That's right, unsung heroes. The story of this show, I'm just going to give you a quick capsule, and then you can listen to it in all its glory. The show was celebrating the unsung heroes, which for those of you who followed any pro wrestling, that means the jobbers, the guys who went out and lost to the superstars on television every week. So Vince McMahon had 3 sets of 3 jobbers that he brought out on this show. And the storyline of the show was he would bring out 3 jobbers, he would treat them with the utmost respect and admiration, and then he would say, let's take a look at all 3 of these men in action. At which point we would see 3 clips of matches where every single one of the jobbers lost in every single instance. And he would come back to the studio and talk to them about what losers they were in a very respectful manner. It was amazing.
That is a fact.
That's
You got all
exactly
of that
what
right.
happened. Yeah.
Yes. Now, you assigned me this show, and then you started watching immediately. I was busy and had to put it off for a while. But shortly after you began watching, I got a text from you that, since I'm on my phone, I can't read it right now, but I believe it just said, Jesus Christ, David Sammartino is horrible. Something very close to that.
That may have been my exact words, yes.
So we saw clips of a David Sammartino match. We saw 3 moves in this order. He grabbed his opponent and immediately hit a belly-to-back suplex onto him right on top of his head.
Brutal.
I screamed, I laughed, I rewound it, I watched it, I made my wife watch it, she swore. If you wanted to kill a man with a belly-to-back suplex, it would look exactly like this.
Yeah, I remember a couple of weeks ago we were watching Nitro and Medusa gave Sherry that German suplex right under her head.
This was much worse than that.
Nothing on this. This was 5,000 times worse.
Yeah. This man on commentary said this man would feel it for 567 years.
Yes. In the grave.
So, not satisfied with having killed him with a suplex, David Sammartino picked this dude up, pressed him over his head, and then dropped him right onto his head.
Again.
Yes. At this point, I determined David Sammartino was the scariest wrestler I've ever seen.
You know what's funny about this, too, is David Sammartino is out there, and doing commentary for the match is Bruno Sammartino. So you have a rare instance of one of the regular commentators on the show is doing commentary for a match involving his son. Now, as I'm sure many of you are aware, Bruno Sammartino and David Sammartino had huge arguments in the 80s because Bruno Sammartino was a staunch anti-steroid guy with all of his being, and his son David was a steroid user. And they got in great arguments over this fact. And I'm thinking about this as I watch this match, and I look at David Sammartino, and it was just astonishing to me that this man could possibly be on steroids.
He was not a bodybuilder, no.
No, this was everything you need to know about how you never know if a guy is on steroids or not, because a guy on steroids does not always look like you would expect a man on steroids to look like. David looked like a chubby guy.
Yeah. So he suplexed this man. Bobby Wade was his opponent's name.
That's right.
Later learned. He suplexed him onto his head. He press-slammed him onto his head. And he did a power slam, thankfully not spiking his head into the mat, and pinned him. So they went back to the studio and began to talk about what a dangerous, sloppy, horrible worker David Sammartino was. And Vince noted that David had almost broken the man's neck. That's a quote. And also a quote, he used sort of a body slam and he pressed that did more damage to the head.
Yes.
At this point, I just want to ask if anyone out there knows if Bob Wade ever wrestled again, or in fact if he ever walked again.
I don't know. I didn't look it up. I don't know the future of Bobby Wade.
And then Lord Alfred Hayes began to break down the proper way to take a bump and protect yourself. Seriously.
That's right. They were blaming Bobby Wade for not tucking his chin enough as David Sammartino dropped him right on his head.
Well, they suggested the suplex would knock him out cold, and then he had no chance to protect himself taking the slam.
I see.
But yes, they just said when you were being slammed down, you tuck your chin into your chest to protect your head, and Bob Wade did not do that. So then, can't believe the show. They showed the two scary falls in super, super slow-mo. This, ladies and gentlemen, is a master class in how not to wrestle. Absolutely terrifying.
Then it got better. Vince brings in Steve Lombardi, the Brooklyn Brawler, Mario Mancini, and Paul Roma, and he begins to ask all of these men what they thought of this match we had just seen.
Yes.
So to recap, I was still watching after seemingly an hour. All of these men talking about a 2-minute match between David Sammartino and Bobby Wade. This went on forever.
It was a 2-minute match.
It was 1 minute.
Match. We saw 3 moves.
Yes. This just went on and on and on. And then let me read my notes. Let me read my notes verbatim here, everybody.
Have at it.
Vince says, let's see these men in action. These men being Steve Lombardi, Mario Mancini, and Paul Roma. Steamboat versus Lombardi. Lombardi pinned. King Kong Bundy versus Mancini. Mancini pinned. Beefcake versus Roma. Roma pinned. That was the entire segment. He introduced his in-studio guests and then showed highlights of them all getting beaten.
Yes. That is true. So first of all, it got better throughout the show, but these 3 dudes on a couch talking. Holy God. Television death.
I guess it got better. It certainly didn't get better with the second group that came in.
Well, no, actually, I would strongly disagree.
Jose Luis Rivera?
Well, one of them was better.
Yes.
So the clips from Lombardi versus Ricky Steamboat, I like when Vince said that if you got Steamboat mad, he would use the karate.
That's right.
Yes. So Steamboat won with a flying body press. And then Mancini got beat up and avalanched and pinned by King Kong Bundy. And then Roma wrestled Brutus Beefcake. And this is interesting just because it was obvious, even watching it here, Roma is much better than Brutus Beefcake.
Oh, yeah. It was funny, actually. It was funny watching the whole show because when I was younger, the impression that I got, people used to always tell me was, you know that these jobbers are actually really, really good wrestlers. They're usually better than the superstars, and that's why they're jobbers, because they're paid to make the superstars look better. That was what I was told. Here I am looking back at it at 39 years old, and with a very small number of exceptions, every one of these jobbers sucked. And I mean that in the nicest way possible.
Roma was the exception, at least on this show. I also like here, there was a point where Steve Lombardi said that it would be a big help to his career, maybe if he could get Bobby Heenan to manage him.
That's right.
And I started to laugh, and I thought, wait a minute, 3 or 4 years later, he did.
Hey, you got to have a goal, even as a jobber.
I guess so.
Vince had such great respect for these losers. He was so kind to them. He put them over huge despite their failures. It was very impressive.
He was very impressed with, it was Mancini. Because Mancini, of course, was brave enough to wrestle King Kong Bundy.
That's
and
right.
Bundy was big.
Mm-hmm.
So they were all very, very boring and talked for a while, and I started to grow irate, and thank God this segment ended. We got a graphic that was like a guy hitting a power slam, and the text read, "Coming up, ouch."
That's right, coming up, ouch.
I should also mention, by the way, the swank lounge music they have for going in and out of breaks. Worth watching by itself. All right, the next group of geeks: Jim Powers, Jose Luis Rivera, and my new favorite wrestler, Rusty Brooks.
That's right, Rusty Brooks.
First of all, Vince was drooling all over Jim Powers' giant biceps.
Oh, yeah. Every man that came in, he could not believe. As soon as they sat down, he was like, Jim Powers. It was Rusty Brooks. Rusty Brooks, you're a big guy. How much do you weigh? And Rusty's like, 340 pounds. And he goes, and Jose Luis Rivera, big man, how much? 240. Oh, man. And Jim Powers, look at your biceps. Looks like you've been doing your curls. That's what he said. He's gawking over their size.
Yes. Incredibly creepy. So, Rusty Brooks sits down. He has, as noted, he is 340 pounds, probably 5'9". He has a comb over, a mustache, and at least 2 chins. He begins to talk about his background playing football in Texas and amateur wrestling. And he actually was the first jobber to show any kind of personality at all whatsoever. He said he was tired of facing and losing to giants. He was kind of insulted to be on the same couch as the other 2 guys. In his mind, he was far above them on the totem pole. And maybe if he had faced men of their size, he might win a match once in a while. So
it was so awesome because we'd had 5 jobbers come out so far, and they were all young guys just getting their start. They were facing the superstars and getting beaten, and they were trying their best, and they were getting put over by Lord Alfred Hayes. And finally out comes Rusty Brooks, an elitist jobber. Does not feel that he should be in the same class as these other jobbers. On the jobber scale, he's at the top of the jobber scale, he believes. I'm this close, he said. I'm this close to getting to where I need to be.
Yes, so they showed Greg Valentine beating Jim Powers. Nothing to it.
Powers loses.
And then they showed Powers did in fact lose to the figure 4. And then they showed Brooks wrestling the Junkyard Dog.
Oh, yeah.
First of all, Rusty Brooks is the most egg-shaped wrestler I've ever seen. And even better, his singlet was too loose, so his straps kept falling down. So he's in there with JYD, and maybe it's just because he was in there with Rusty Brooks, but Junkyard Dog was very almost skinny here. And Rusty Brooks took a bunch of great comedy bumps, and Vince was laughing on commentary. And then finally he missed a drop kick, and Junkyard Dog pinned him with a running headbutt.
Yeah, he just ran into him.
Basically a tope in the ring.
Mm-hmm.
And then Jim Neidhart, managed by Mr. Fuji, beat Rivera and pinned him with, of all things, a Junkyard Dog-style power slam.
That's right. You can't have 2 power slams on the same show.
Yes. So then Vince tried to finish the interview back in the studio, but whatever the other guy said, Brooks would laugh it off, was very unimpressed. He could not believe Rivera looked up to a has-been like Pedro Morales. Al Hayes started talking about the confidence each man had. Brooks said that Al had no room to judge them. He declared himself a step away from stardom, and this man stifled a laugh and threw it to commercial.
Lord Al Hayes is giving his rundown of all of the men, and not only did Rusty Brooks say, "Who are you to question me?" but he added, "I've seen you wrestle," which caused Lord Al Hayes to laugh. And Lord Al Hayes decided that Rusty Brooks was overconfident, and that's why he was having these problems. But Jose Luis Rivera did not have enough confidence. And if he got more, he might be a big-time star. And Rusty blew this all off and noted that he was just a step away. That's his catchphrase back then. I'm just a step away. And to be fair, of all of the men on the couch, one man ended up having a nationally televised match with Hulk Hogan. And guess who it was?
Rusty Brooks?
Rusty Brooks.
Did he really?
He did.
I was not aware.
So that's right. He was right all along. He was just one.
Right
He was one step away.
Rusty.
It's online somewhere.
Hulk.
Not on the network, I'm sure.
I'll look into the network. There's no Rusty Brooks on it. Oh my God, it's on here. It's a championship match.
That's right. I told you.
And here's one with Rusty Brooks versus Andre the Giant. Well, I know what I'm doing all night.
Vinny, all you got to do is believe.
I guess so.
So the next segment was not just jobbers, but it was big-time jobbers. This is the jobber main event crew.
Well, it was Charlie Fulton. It was the unpredictable Johnny Rods. And most importantly, the Duke of Dorchester, Pete Doherty.
Your favorite wrestler.
Thank God for this man. First of all, I've seen Johnny Rods wrestle a bunch of times. I don't think I'd ever seen him speak before.
It was new to me, too.
Never has a nickname fit a man less. You're unpredictable, and you think he's going to be wild and crazy and out of control. No.
The best part is Johnny Rods goes out there, and Vince calls him the unpredictable Johnny Rods. And Johnny Rods sits down, and he's just being very calm. And Vince starts to question the unpredictable nature of Johnny Rods. And as he is essentially bearing the guy's nickname, Johnny Rods just goes, "You know who gave me the nickname Unpredictable?" And Vince says, "No." And Johnny Rods goes, You did on commentary." And Vince is baffled, and he goes, "I did?" And then he immediately changes the subject.
Yeah. So you know what? I take it back. Vince did not predict he was going to ask that question.
That's right.
He was, in fact, unpredictable. So, as I noted, my wife was watching the show with me. And throughout the show, she spoke 3 times. Once was when Bobby Wade was dropped on his head and nearly killed. Once when Rusty Brooks appeared and she said, "That guy's a wrestler?" And then when Pete Doherty came out and began to shout and bellow, she could not take her eyes off the screen and just asked, "Who is that guy?"
That's right.
And I told her, "That's the Duke of Dorchester." So he was, he declared several times actually, that he was not homicidal or suicidal or schizophrenic.
That's right.
He declared himself to be far more unpredictable than Johnny Rods, and that is a fact.
That is true. That is correct. You can only have so many nicknames. You know what I mean? You can't be the unpredictable Duke of Dorchester, Irish Pete Doherty. That's too many nicknames.
Not enough room on the marquee.
Although I should say, we went to a kind of, I don't even know what it was. I know this is terrible. No one knows what I'm talking about right now, but that's okay. So I saw a King Kamehameha exhibit wherever it was that we were, and there was a picture of him, a drawing, as they say, and then underneath they said, King Kamehameha's real name was, and it was in fact very similar to the unpredictable Duke of Dorchester, Irish Pete Doherty. It was approximately 15 words was his real name.
Well, there you go then. So the jobber clips here, we had, where'd he go? Charlie Fulton got beat by Barry Windham. Nothing happened.
Nothing.
Charlie Fulton brought nothing to the table on this show.
No.
Jimmy Snuka, Pete Doherty, he hits a middle rope headbutt and makes a cover. And the ref drops down to count and then thinks, "Wait a minute, this isn't the splash." And he gets to his feet. And Snuka looks up at him and says, or with a look that says, "This is the finish, dude." and the ref drops down and he counts 3.
That's right. And what is the only thing that Vince McMahon said about this entire match? Look at the size of Snuka's biceps.
Yes. Yes, it was. This show does reveal a lot about the inner Vince.
That's right. He likes them biceps.
He's a big fan of biceps. And then we got Johnny Rods against Hulk Hogan, who was the World Heavyweight Champion and wearing electric blue.
Yeah, he used to wear that all the time.
Yeah. So Hulk hooked up here, which meant first he had to give the other guy offense. So for about 20 seconds, I got to see Johnny Rods beating up Hulk Hogan.
That's how he became renowned as such a great trainer.
You know what? That was also unpredictable. I did not see that coming. So Hogan comes back and wins with a leg drop. So they go back to the studio, and Vince is talking, and Rods claims that the ref has been slow or else he might be world champion right now, and they're all yammering on about this and that. And in the middle, not even part of the conversation, Dorothy's just putting on some kind of headgear.
I think he may have been putting his underwear on his head. I'm not entirely sure what was on his head.
At first, I thought it was a yarmulke.
Sure.
And then it appeared to be some kind of turban swept over to the side. So everyone else is talking about chokeholds, and finally, Pete Doherty, in a turban, begins to speak up. He is outraged that he has showed Snuka cheating to beat him. He said he was going back to the Middle East, where people treated him with respect. He was going to go to some island off Kuwait, and they asked him what was there, and I believe he said the remains of Gunga Din.
Yes, that's what he said.
Now, I thought first he said Gunga Ding, which is even funnier.
That may have been what he originally said, because I think he screwed it up about 6 times.
That's also possible. So Hayes was just openly laughing at this point. I don't even know what happened, but
it wasn't just Hayes. You could hear people in the background on the set are just howling. Like this guy, this guy just decided he was going to come out here and just talk out of his ass, and he had no idea what he was going to say. He had no idea what he was talking about. He was just saying a bunch of words, and everybody's just openly laughing at him.
So if this show had ended here, it would have been an oddball kind of fun thing. But there was more.
Oh, no. This did suck.
This was horrendous. They had a cheap nightclub set up.
You know what's funny, Vinny? Before you review this, I got to tell you something. So I watched all the way up to the Duke of Dorchester going out of his mind, and I'm sitting there thinking, there's no way Vinny could not like this show. It's so wacky, it's fun, it's short. I mean, there's no possible way that he could find something to dislike about this program. And then they brought out the Crusher comic in the Café Le Bump. And as I watched it, I could see from 2,500 miles away, or however the fuck far away in the ocean I am right now, I could see you turning red and beginning to shake. You know how you do that, Vinny? I could just see it from here that you were infuriated by this segment. And I was right, wasn't I?
It was really, really, really horrible. I was constantly checking the time to say, oh my God, is this over yet? How many more minutes is this?
Horribly unfunny.
So yes, the stand-up comedian in a mask, he did bad prop jokes. He made fun of Puerto Ricans. He made fun of Jews. And he left, and I thought, well, at least that's over. And after the break, he came out for more. He brought Mario Mancini up on stage. He challenged him to a chain match, and then the punchline was that instead of fighting, they would play Rock'em Sock'em Robots. This made television. It
was unbelievably terrible. They had sexual jokes here on this show from 1986, I believe. May have been 85. I don't even remember. The one thing about the show that I did find interesting was it was called the Café Le Bump. If you watch TNT and you watch it like through modern eyes, it's amazing how inside this show is. And imagine back to 1985, Vince was writing this show for himself. And maybe Dave. Himself, Dave, and all the wrestlers. It was the only people that would understand this show from start to finish.
So that was Tuesday Night Titans.
Yeah. Fell off a cliff there at the end.
Oh my God!
Crusher comic was so bad.
It fell down a bottomless pit.
You know what me was to think of is when I was looking at the original episode number 1 of this Tuesday Night Titans and how it was 2 hours long. Remember I was talking about this, how could the show possibly be 2 hours long? Like, what could you possibly fill it with? Here was a 45-minute version where they didn't have enough material that they had to put in the Crusher comic there at the end.
Yes.
Not to mention, think about the matches. They could have removed the Crusher comic and showed more of those matches, but apparently the matches were such that they decided, we better put in this Crusher comic instead of showing more of these matches.
Also true.